Today we're going to walk through the population module. This module is designed to help you explore population dynamics for a primary geography and its peer states. So to give you an idea, the summary page, like with the other modules, serves as like a front door to the submodules underneath. So we pulled out some quick data insights here, right? Recent population growth rate, the largest in-migration demographic subset. Looks like we're getting a lot of retirees here, which is kind of interesting. Our top source of inflow migration, so which state are people migrating to North Carolina coming from? So in this case, a lot of folks from Florida, looks like. And then the vital index, which is a measure of births versus deaths to help you assess the natural change in population, essentially. So that's the change in population that does not include like migration information of people who lived in this state in the whole year, right? What's the rate of births versus deaths? So let's go ahead to the first submodule. This is population trends. Like with other modules, you can filter down by the states you've selected. You can filter by the years of data you want to look at. And you can generate AI insights based on whichever data is being shown. Interestingly enough, the government has not released data for 2020, which is why you see this big gap here. But essentially what you're seeing here is population trend, percent change, right? What's the change year over year in the population of the states shown here? This is regardless of whether it's natural change or migration change, right? This is just like the straight numbers, essentially. And then of that population change, right, we're then looking here at what the shifts in the age, sort of the distribution of age buckets of the population of a given state. So we're seeing like pretty even distribution here, not a lot of shifts from year to year. I might actually filter down to like just North Carolina maybe to really zoom in on the information for my state, right? That was kind of a lot of info. Right, we can see it a little bit better, but just not a lot of change year over year, and it looks like North Carolina is pretty much right on par with like the national benchmark in terms of age distribution. A similar thing down here, we're looking at what's the breakdown of educational attainment across the population of your state. Seeing a little bit of differences here, right? It looks like at the national level, we've got some more less than high school, like a slightly higher proportion of less than high school educated folks, right? 25.9 versus 26.59. Not a huge difference, but that is a little bit of a shift. And then we've got class of worker. This is a number of different values that kind of tell you like the circumstances of employment of a given person, like what kind of worker are they. So not in labor force, right? This is going to be children and retirees. Of everyone else, we've got unemployed. We can see, what's the proportion of folks that are, self-employed, incorporated. What's the proportion of folks that work in federal versus state government, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, moving on to migration. This is where stuff gets pretty interesting. So of people, right, who moved into these states in a given year, right, you can see sort of what's the age breakdown of those people. So again, I want to filter down to just a couple of states, just so we can kind of see a little bit closer. Okay, so we can see, right, that Virginia is seeing a little bit higher inflow of people 16 to 24 than North Carolina is. That's really the main difference here. But it depends on the year, right? In 2022, North Carolina saw like more children moving in under 16 than Virginia did, only 14.84. So we kind of get a sense of like who's going where. 23, we're seeing here like more people 80 plus are moving to Virginia than moved to North Carolina. Just kind of some interesting stuff there. Okay, so similar thing, outflow by age bucket. This is like of the people leaving North Carolina and Virginia, right? What's the distribution of ages of those people? North Carolina saw slightly more like 80 plus retirees, right, moving out of the state than Virginia did, right? 1.71 to 0.9. Again, giving us an idea of who's moving out of the state, right? And what does that say? So similar thing here of people moving into these states in a given year. This can tell you kind of what's the education breakdown of those people. In 2024, Virginia saw a higher inflow of people with master's degrees than North Carolina, right? We're seeing 11.84 here and 8.99. Also seeing, right, an even split essentially of less than high school educated people moving into North Carolina and Virginia, but then more high schoolers moving to North Carolina than moved to Virginia. And then we've got the outflow, same thing, right, of folks leaving these states each year. We can see whether, right, are a lot of folks with college degrees, right, are they leaving these states? Are retirees leaving? If a lot of bachelor's and master's students, master's graduates, right, were like leaving the state, that's something that people often refer to as brain drain. People come to your state maybe to get educated, but then they move away, right, because there's no jobs, right? There's all kinds of implications to these kinds of things. Right, in 2019, we saw 20.93 of less than high school, right, leaving North Carolina, and then 17.81 leaving Virginia. So, a similar thing if you're interested in like whether wealthy people are leaving the state or coming into the state, right? That's what the inflow and outflow by income bucket shows you. And then the same deal with the outflow, basically. Okay, so now we know some stuff about the breakdown of people moving in and out, right, of the states in question. But now we want to know a little bit more about where they're going to and coming from for a given state. So let's say we look at North Carolina, right, and we want to see where people are moving from and moving to in relation to North Carolina. So now we get these 4 rankings, essentially. So of folks moving into North Carolina, right, what states are they coming from by volume? So this is like number of people who moved from Florida to North Carolina between 2019 and 2024. And then we have the flip side, right, of folks who are moving out of North Carolina in the 2019 to 2024 time span. You can see that the highest number of people moved to South Carolina in that time span. Slightly fewer, right, moved to Florida. So a lot of exchange, I guess, among these few states. Then these second set of charts are ranked not by volume of people who moved, right? These are all kind of like the most people moved to Florida, moved from Florida, then the most people moved from Virginia, then, next to South Carolina. With the inflow origins by AGI, this is of the people who are moving to North Carolina, what is the highest income of the people who are moving in? So this kind of can tell you, like, where are high-earning residents coming from? Regardless of how many high-earning residents there are, this is just kind of telling you, like, it's ranking, right, from Wisconsin. We had people coming in with an average of this income, whereas the people from Kansas coming in were averaging this income. So then same thing for outflow. This is interesting, like for people moving out of North Carolina, right, it looks like high earners are moving to DC. These all show like all 50 states. So you can see exactly where like almost nobody, right, moved to North Carolina from South Dakota. The lowest. So similarly, I guess both North Dakota and South Dakota are kind of like, there's just not a lot of action between North Carolina and the Dakotas. Okay, and now we've got some charts all about natural change. Natural change is change in population and population spread when you subtract migration from those equations. So this is just how is the population changing from people like getting older, from them dying, and from them being born. So it does not include anyone who moved into or out of the state in a given year. So we've got this vital index, again from the summary, right? This is the ratio of births to deaths, measuring what people call the rate of natural population replacement, right? Like for each person who dies, is there a baby being born? Right? And then we've got growth concentration. This is kind of a cool one. We built an index based on, some research that allows us to say, like, of the places that are growing, right, the counties that are adding population by natural change. This index shows us, like, the geographic concentration of that population growth. So that means that if you're up in this orange band, essentially your population growth, right, is happening in 30 of 105 counties. So this way you can see, right, in Maryland, fairly evenly distributed, because we're seeing that growth in 19 out of 24 counties. So I think it's all like the ratio of like the number of counties that are growing versus the number of counties that exist. Okay, and then we've got this, our last indicator here is the components of population change. So of the population change that happened, how much of it is happening from domestic migration, right, U.S. state to U.S. state, international migration, and then this sort of natural change piece. So that's a look at the population module. Modules are available a la carte in bundles, so organizations can start with what's relevant and expand from there. What makes this different isn't that this data has not existed before. Most of it comes from federal sources. What's different is that it's normalized, it's visual, it's filterable, and it's shareable. You're not handing someone a spreadsheet or a static PDF, you're giving them a live embeddable chart that tells a specific story to a specific audience. This is a communications tool as much as it is a research tool. The goal is really to get you from data to published narrative in minutes, whether that's a legislative briefing, an annual report, a member spotlight, or a press release. No exports, no reformatting, no lag between the insight and the story. If you want to go deeper on any of the modules or talk through how this would fit your specific use case, reach out to us at ecomap.tech.